Once upon a time, in a northern Swedish town, far, far away, after spending too much money on too many drill bits, I finally turned around and I noticed my belt grinder and had a realization. Why am I spending all this money when I can just sharpen them myself? I'd been living a lie, thinking I was just part of the deal to buy new bits as they were dull. My only concern was that I could potentially ruin the hardening of the drill bit from the heat when grinding it, but we'll talk about that part later. Well, this was my graveyard before my epiphany. Today I'm an enlightened man. Before I threw them away, today I'm sharpening my drill bits in just mere seconds, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do the same thing. I'm not going to exaggerate this, but this is most probably the most essential skill in your workshop if you work with metal. Let's go. The dull one struggles. As you can see, it doesn't really get any bite and it doesn't go through at all. Check out the difference. The freshly sharpened bit cuts right through, like a piece of butter. Well, at least metal butter. Most drill bits for softer metals have a tip angle of 118 degrees. These are generally the cheaper ones, the bread and butter ones, the one you buy in the mid-range. They are marked HSS. Lifespan is typically really short, even if you buy an expensive or a cheap one. So just go for the cheap one and then you sharpen it and you save money. That's the thing of this entire video. Now, sometimes if you need to drill something harder, for example, an HSS 118 angle is absolutely perfect for mild steel or aluminum. However, if you're drilling in something that's harder, mid or high carbon steel, which has been hardened, or even a stainless steel, then you need something stronger than this. You need carbide drill or an alloy with about 5% cobalt. Those drill bits are marked thereafter. However, they also have a more aggressive angle, 135. This would be much more aggressive, which works fine when removing more material, but it puts stress on the drill bit, and the drill bit needs to be hard enough for it to work. It usually doesn't on these cheap ones. If you want, you can always increase the angle on this one to 135, and after it's dull, you can just blunt it down and resharpen it to 118. It goes really fast depending on which kind of grinder you have. We will start by angling this to 59 degrees, which gives us the perfect angle, which would be 118. We will then make a second mark for 67 degrees if we would like to make a sharper angle. With those two angles, then we can sharpen any drill bit we want. We'll do the second mark at 67 degrees. And this one at 59. Now, you can leave this as a permanent marker. If you don't have a table like this, you can simply use a wooden piece or a piece of tape. You just tape it and you just do the exact same measurement. Now we're going to follow this line, as this is 59 degrees. We're going to keep it as parallel as we can. If you are off 1 or 2 degrees, it doesn't really matter. It's not that sensitive. Trust me, because it's going to dull down pretty quick when you use it anyway. So keep it in line with this. This is a 3mm piece, so it's very, very sensitive. You slightly touch it. You see as the material is starting to be eaten away, and you touch it gently and you start to roll it and upwards. We also want this backside to be sharpened down because the cutting edge is straight here in the front, and the backside is just to evacuate chips. So we want this to have a downward slope, and as we touch it and lift it and rotate it, and here will become a downward slope, which is exactly what we want. And this is all there is to it. It's not harder than that. It goes just as fast if you make it bigger. Not everyone is lucky enough to have a belt sander like this. I know most people have a grinding stone. Works just as fine. You can use a wet grinding stone. It takes a lot more time. You can use a hot grinding stone. It takes just
as little time as with the belt sander. However, it generates much more heat. Usually, as you have a wet sander, you don't have a tablet here where you can do markings. You can put on just a slab of wood and draw a line, just the same thing as we did here. Otherwise, you can buy a separate jig for it.
One of the most fascinating things about blacksmithing, for me personally, is hardening steel. You can take steel and just by the hardening process, you can make it a lot stronger. They even figured this out in the 11th century. Imagine that, you know, you're living extremely basic and you figure out how to harden steel with no science at all. That's really fascinating. I'm not going to bore you with this topic, which just I think is fascinating, but how are we going to apply this knowledge to drill bits? Well, it's easy. Drill bits are made out of high-speed steel. It's an alloy which requires a lot to heat to ruin the hardening process. So you need to reach about 450 to 500 degrees Celsius, generally, depending on which steel it is, before you ruin the hardening. Now, that's a very high temperature. As you grind, removing material from the drill bit or whatever you grind creates a lot of heat. That heat is transferred straight into the drill bit. Now, reaching temperatures of about 200 degrees is very easy. It's easy also to spot because when you look at the drill bit, you see that it's yellow. And as it is yellow, the steel starts to oxidize. It means it reacts with the air and creates a different color. Now, if it's yellow, it's no problem. If it becomes dull or dark gray, now that's an issue, but then it is 450 to 500 degrees and probably you will not be able to hold the drill bit by itself anyway. It's very hard to fail at this. In that same process, well, I have a wet grinding stone right here. I never use it for drill bits because the wet grinding stone keeps water flowing on the grinding stone. That water cools down whatever you're sharpening. If you're sharpening something that is more sensitive, for example, knives or anything made out of spring steel, then you need to be really careful not to overheat the material. In this case, you don't. A wet grinding stone is much slower. It could be good if you have a very small drill bit, 2-3 millimeter, but you can grind that on the belt sander and it goes a lot faster. So if you have a wet stone, use it. I would never buy a wet stone for grinding a drill bit. For this machine, for the Tormek, you can buy for around $180 a jig for drill bits. That is for me a complete waste of money. For that money, you could buy an entire box of cobalt drill bits. And with this technique to sharpen, it would last you a lifetime is too much, but it would last you a long time. And you would buy that for just maybe a third of the price of the jig itself. So for me, that would be a waste of money. So my message is simple. Don't be afraid to fail. Your drill bit is already dull. It's already ruined. You have to throw it away anyway. Just take it to the grinder, sharpen it, use the line as a guide. If it's dull when you're finished with it, go at it again, try again. You remove so little material so you can sharpen it a lot of times. And if you really truly fail, throw it away, buy a new one, which you would have done anyway. But as you notice, just a few tries and you'll get a very good hang of it. And then you have basically drill bits forever. And that's it, super easy. It's even fun to grind it and just to look at the sharp drill piece and get the satisfaction of a perfect sharp edge. And on top of that, it saves you a lot of money. I would again stress this. This is probably the most essential skill. It's very quick to learn. Now, if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, please hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.